a few old faces and names. Welcome today to something we find pretty interesting. We've teamed up with the family office networks, and for those that don't know about family offices, this discussion is not about that. Why we're here is because we believe that financial services, in the famous iconic quote of the Joker, "This town needs an enema." We're going to hear from the commissioner today about some of the draconian practices in financial services that really do need some reformation. And we're excited to kind of get behind this for obvious reasons in the investment and financial services sector. Andrew's, our co-host, is going to speak to. He's got a lot of really great talking points. If you don't come up with questions, I know he will. And so we want to reserve the last part of this discussion today, 20, 30 minutes or so, if needed, to have questions. And so, but if you've got questions or topics in the meantime, and the commissioner doesn't cover those, please, hold to the end. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and put them in the chat. And so we can get a running tab of that. There will be a poll, just to let you know, and there will be a call to action at the end. So you want to be sure to stick around to the very end and find out the most important aspect of what we've got going on here today. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Katie Norris. She's the Florida Deputy Director of Communications. And she's going to do the introduction for the Commissioner of Office of Financial Regulation, and then, like I said, we'd also like to hear from Andrew with the Family Office Networks. Why he's excited and why he got involved and what does he think about this. So before we get to Katie, Andrew, care to share a few thoughts?
Sure. Thank you, Dale, and thank you, Commissioner, and everyone for taking the time here. What excites me the most is that this bill basically allows, financial firms and people in the financial sector, whether you're a broker-dealer, an RIA, it allows you to operate a much, much easier versus, as Dale alluded to, draconian type of rules. The rules right now make it very difficult for smaller businesses to raise money from different investors because of the definition of what's considered a finder and a few other things. But what I like for the members of our network is that it will ease the restrictions, and most of the people I'm familiar with are in the broker-dealer, RIA, well, in some capacity. So this really does affect, a lot of people. And in my opinion, it's going to bring a lot of value to small companies. And we'll certainly, hopefully, this will be the starting point for other states to follow. And with that, I will leave it to, I guess, Katie.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the Family Office Networks and King's Counsel and Trust Family Office for hosting this presentation today. My name is Katie Norris. I'm here with Commissioner Weigel and Peter Del Castillo, and I see Alex Anderson here as well. We would like to welcome you to Stimulating the Formation of a Capital Funding Ecosystem by the Office of Financial Regulation. Today, we'll be sharing more about the OFR and what we do. Then Commissioner Weigel will share more information about OFR's Securities Legislative Initiative. We'll hear more about how you can learn more and share feedback. After that, I'm sorry. So first we're going to be talking about more information on our cryptocurrency legislation. Then we'll go into the Securities Legislative Initiative, and we'll hear more about how you can learn more and share feedback on our Securities Initiative. And then finally, we'll open up for question and answers, and you can always, please feel free to email any questions to feedback@flofr.gov if we run short on time. So a little bit about the OFR. The Office of Financial Regulation is the primary regulator of the state chartered and licensed financial services industry in Florida. We work every day to license and regulate financial services businesses in a way that promotes a healthy and innovative financial arena and the growth of the state economy, while ensuring that Floridians are protected from financial criminals and scams and illegal financial practices. A fun fact about the OFR, we're a relatively new state government agency, having been created in 2003. However, our beginnings as a banking, consumer finance, and securities regulator date back to the mid-1800s. So at this time, I'd like to introduce you to Commissioner Weigel. In March of 2020, the OFR welcomed new Commissioner Russell C. Weigel III. Commissioner Weigel is an AV-rated securities attorney with more than 30 years of legal experience and a published author. He began his career as an enforcement attorney, serving 11 years with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission in management, investigation, and litigation roles. After that, he spent 20 years in the private sector as a securities transaction litigation attorney. He holds an undergraduate degree in economics from Vanderbilt University and a Juris Doctor from the University of Miami School of Law. A longtime focus of Commissioner Weigel has been the creation of Florida's small business capital funding ecosystem.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you everybody for joining and tuning in today. I just want to correct the record on Katie's behalf. She is our Director of Communications. She's second to nobody in that role, and so Deputy, she's not.
Sorry about that. My bad. Thank you.
So thank you. Yeah, I'm going to touch on the two big things I think that might be of interest to this group. And the first is, what is Florida? All of our discussions are going to be about Florida internally. So the state of things in Florida with respect to cryptocurrency is that we have absolutely no regulation of that industry at all, in one sense, and that is there's no specific like regulatory program that deals with the various aspects of the what we would call the I guess the virtual currency industry or cryptocurrency industry, and Florida's trying to come up with a sensible policy, and we're in many ways sort of in a watch and wait mode. We're extremely mindful of the sort of I don't know how to the fact that the industry is in an infancy state in many ways. Is something we're trying to avoid tripping over, avoid stifling, and so we don't want to get into it in a heavy-handed way. Other states have led the way in different directions, and New York on the one hand is a prime example, and Wyoming another prime example, and Florida is sort of seeing these as two different maybe goalposts, and maybe trying to fit somewhere in the middle, but we're kind of doing it slowly, hopefully methodically. And but the first thing we're doing is trying to include virtual currency as a thing, as a payment system that is included in our money transmission statute. So we regulate money transmitters, and we are kind of, our hand is kind of forced in this case. We have a court decision, an appellate decision that came out in 2019 that really upset the apple cart for this industry in Florida, and really thwarted my agency's policy with respect to the regulation of money transmission. There was it was a criminal case that in which a fellow who was dealing in Bitcoin and basically money laundering with it, was arrested by an undercover agent, and that case went up on appeal, and the appellate court said that, and since it was a Bitcoin case and it was clearly a peer-to-peer transaction between the the defendant and the undercover agent who was receiving, the undercover agent was the one receiving the Bitcoin. The court said that these transactions are subject to the money transmission statute. And the implication of that is because, we only regulate, in our minds anyway, we only regulate intermediaries, the people that, you bring your cash to, they take your cash and they wire it to a third party. Those folks are the ones that, we think there's systemic risk for, and that's the type of entity we like to focus on. Well, the court, by saying in a peer-to-peer case that peer-to-peer transactions in virtual currency are regulated under the money transmission statute, essentially means that all transactions between anybody and everybody are regulated, which just can't possibly be the case. We're trying to fix that with a definitional fix, and we had a bill that was run in our legislature last spring. It made it through our House of Representatives and got stuck in the Senate for nothing to do with the bill itself, but it's coming back in identical form. It's being fast-tracked in the House of Representatives. Our legislative session this year starts January 11th. So we're excited to see that bill come back, because that'll be Florida's first toe in the water in the virtual currency space, because that bill will say that virtual currency is something that is regulated, and but only in an intermediary transaction. So that'll be the first thing. And like I said, there's more to come. I mean, we're looking at broader implications of regulation of this industry. We're looking at it from the custodian point of view in our banking system, and we're advocating that the state adopt an amended version of the Uniform Commercial Code, which we don't regulate that, but it's just a thing that it would include virtual currency in it. I think it comes up with a new definition for it, and it's one that seems to be flexible and makes sense. And we think it would be a good foundational start for basically for commerce in the state of Florida. And so it wouldn't be a regulatory thing. It wouldn't be something that my agency would have jurisdiction over per se, but it would be something that would directly affect basically all financial institutions, all transactions implicitly that involve the banking industry, credit unions, other financial institutions, and who may be trying to secure transactions using crypto as the tool. So that's a thing that's kind of we're on the watch for. It won't happen at the earliest until next year. I would say probably 2023. But we're watching, we're waiting, and trying to learn along the way. We are, as an agency, trying to get feedback from the industry, from investors, and make sure that we have all angles considered before we take action. So we distinguish the blockchain tech industry from virtual currency, and the regulatory focus so far seems to be more aimed at virtual currency, and not the blockchain technology, which I think is a proper focus. But so that's kind of in a nutshell what's going on with cryptocurrency and blockchain in the state of Florida at the moment. So other bills, other people are submitting things to our legislature. So, we're never quite sure what's going to come out at any one time, but the stuff we're aware of really hinges on the money transmission angle at this time. So just FYI. And so while crypto is certainly a passion of mine, the reason I applied for this job was to try to get a capital market started in the state of Florida. And clearly there is one for the largest enterprises in the state. They can get funded, through investment funding, and have always been able to do so. But the state has never really had an infrastructure that was conducive to funding small or medium-sized enterprises, and that stems in large part from just the fact that Florida was never New York. It was never Silicon Valley, and yet Florida is now the third largest state, and in terms of population, and we're at the top of the charts in terms of new company formation. We have been for the last couple of years, but we rank poorly. We're close to the bottom even in the country in being able to get investment funding for our in-state enterprises. And so what happens in the state, because Florida historically has grown up as a real estate investment market and not a business investment market. And Florida enterprises typically get funded from Silicon Valley. And, maybe number two would be New York, maybe number three would be in Texas. And what inevitably happens with our enterprises, not all of them, but certainly a quantity of them, they're invited to leave the state and go set up shop close to where their investment funding came from. And that's obviously a bad economic situation for Florida, because it inevitably creates a brain drain. We would like our newly educated folks in the state in particular to stay in the state and be part of our community. We like our businesses to stay here and be able to thrive, but we don't really have that. And in my view, part of the solution is to fix our antiquated security statute and try to make it more business friendly, if you will. And so we're trying to do that in a couple of different ways. And this is definitely a work in progress, but we have a bill we're trying to get. It is sponsored already in the House of Representatives in Florida, and soon to be filed, we believe, in the Senate. And it does a number of things. It treats our registered offering system differently, and hopefully will fix to some extent, if not completely, our crowdfunding statute, and opens up additional opportunities for accredited investors and companies to interact with them. It also provides some safe harbors for different aspects of doing offerings. We have testing the waters proposals in the bill, and we have safe harbors for like pitch nights, for example, usually conducted by incubators and things like that, where they have a number of different companies that they're talking about what they do, not necessarily seeking investment, but inevitably people do see them on stage, do invest, or do approach them for investment purposes, and that creates a quandary of potential promoter activity, by the incubator or the host, and and inquiries whether they were compensated and different things. So we're trying to create a safe harbor for that. And I can talk a little bit more about that. But and the last thing was we're proposing to register finders. And that is something that I think, will translate well if we get this through, because there's it's been a problem as long as I've been in the industry, and certainly since I've been practicing law. And I started in the end of the 80s, and finders are just a group of people that everybody runs into, and they're persona non grata, in the SEC world, unless they have a license. So, companies that do accept funding from finders, are also subjecting themselves to inherent liability from other investors or any investor that was involved in a transaction involving a finder, because unlicensed personnel, receiving compensation can be a basis for complete rescission of an offering. And so it destabilizes the market, in my opinion. And yet people need them. And so they can certainly, grease the wheels. The question is how to integrate them into our system, in a competent way. So drilling down in a little bit deeper. So we're proposing to modify our registered offering statute. Basically, Florida is a merit review. It's a merit review system, and basically what that means is my agency decides whether a company is qualified to raise capital in the state. So, and our statute is pretty tough, and it has a number of standards in it. Like, if you don't have revenue for 3 years running, you're ineligible. So that pretty much eliminates any, pre-revenue company, right off the bat. And so we're proposing to change that into a disclosure-based system, identical to the SEC's. Their model works, ours doesn't. Very few people ever register offerings, and they always, if they're going to do it, they're always going to do it in the federal system. And so we want to fix that and try to make it. I mean, not that we're sure that people are going to start doing registered offerings in Florida at the state level, but certainly fixing it so they could, if they chose to, as an opportunity, and make that workable, would be, I think, a reasonable thing to do than have a statute on the books that doesn't work at all. So we're going to change the merit review standard, and another thing, we're trying to fix our crowdfunding statute. Presently, our crowdfunding statute was enacted in 2015, and we have not had a single crowdfund offering ever in the state of Florida. And now there are certainly some that are that happen through FINRA licensed portals under the Jobs Act system. Our statute was patterned after the Jobs Act, but it just doesn't work in Florida because what we feel we need in the state is more localized opportunities for investors to participate in a crowdfunding offering, and so we also need to reduce the barriers to entry that we have statutorily enacted for crowdfunding portals. We only have one portal licensed in the state of Florida, and that's a direct result of us talking about the issue this past year. But one portal is not going to change the market for crowdfunding in Florida. We need to do something that it makes it a palatable business opportunity for a portal operator to want to be licensed, because our statute does require an association with a portal before you can do a crowdfunding offering. So the current version of our bill tries to address that. We're trying to adopt also the dollar off or dollar cap that the SEC moved to recently, which is a 5 million cap. We have a $1 million cap under our current statute. And we're also trying to open up the number of businesses or business types that can serve as escrow agents for offering proceeds. Presently, that's limited to financial institutions, but for a crowdfund issuer that is essentially a startup company and has no banking relationship, walking into a financial institution and saying, I'm doing a $1 million or a $5 million offering, and I want to put the proceeds in your bank, and they have no pre-existing relationship, is a non-starter for the bank. And so we're trying to change that by opening up that opportunity to folks like title companies and attorneys who have trust funds that do have relationships with banks and could receive those proceeds and house them, for the requisite duration during the offering. So these barriers are, there are other details of the statute we're trying to fix, but these are some of the big ones. And hopefully we can, because without more portals in the state, crowdfunding is just a non-starter at the state level. So we're hoping to fix that. Let's see. So I mentioned, we're also allowing crowdfund issuers as well as our registered offering issuers. And I believe this also applies to our other exempt offerings. We're allowing, or we're proposing to allow the issuers to test the waters before committing to a full-blown offering. And we think that'll be a benefit to small companies, particularly because, as this crowd probably well knows, putting together an offering is an expensive endeavor, and most small companies really just don't have the wherewithal to get competent legal counsel, to associate themselves with proper accountants, prepare adequate financial statements, and so forth. Put together a disclosure document of any kind. That's usually a pricey item that small companies think very long and hard about doing, just because they don't know if they can, if they, after they've put the expense to create a disclosure document, that they'll actually have a investor appetite for their offering in the first place. So the testing the waters would allow them to speak to investors, but not accept money, and that should give them enough feedback to discuss what the investment community thinks is a suitable set of terms for the company, and the company can then turn around and build it into a proper offering and do it the right way, or in a more likely successful way. So the testing the waters, I think, is going to be an important feature of the system. And another thing we're doing is we're adopting a model accredited investor exemption, which is from the North American Securities Administrators Association. They've had it on their books since, I believe, 1999. And why do it now? Well, the SEC has the 506C accredited investor rule. They also have the accredited investor exemption under Section 4 of the Securities Act. But in general, those programs haven't been very successful. And one of the reasons we think why is that the fact that they're, particularly under 506C, there's a requirement that the issuer obtain like evidence that that the proposed investors, all of them, are in fact accredited, and most investors or putative investors would not be interested in sharing their financial data with a company that is in desperate need for cash. Why would they do that up front? A company they don't know. So it's not very big in terms of number of deals that have been done at the SEC level. But the thing that has been successful at the SEC level is the 506B friends and family rule. And one of the key differences there is, well, it requires a pre-existing relationship with the investors. It does allow the investor to just represent that they're accredited. And so the issuer just needs a reasonable basis for believing that to be true, and the deals can move forward. The NASA model has the reasonable belief standard, and so we think that would be interesting to include in our exemptions, so that and the issuers would have another opportunity. They could still do a generally solicited offering on an exempt basis, and provided they had a reasonable belief that investors were accredited, they could accept their cash. So we think that may not be a big or widely used tool, but I think it'll be another one in the quiver for the issuers. And we're also doing a couple other things, like we have a limited offering exemption, which has the old Reg D integration standard embedded in it. And the SEC has changed their integration standard this past year. We're proposing to adopt the new standard, and the limited offering also is proposed to have what we call a limited demo day solicitation safe harbor. And so I mentioned pitch night before. I think we also referred to it as demo day, and so more specifically, that just would allow usually it's going to be an academic, I think, type situation or an incubator or an accelerator where they're hosting an event to showcase their clients and their client companies, and provide a safe harbor, provided that they follow certain rules in doing those events. They would have basically an exemption from broker-dealer concerns. So, and lastly, the I don't know, maybe perhaps the most important aspect of the whole program in the bill is to include the registration of finders. And so I'm sure this audience is well aware of finders, and we're proposing to provide a standard background check that we do for all of our licensees, all investment advisors and broker-dealer associates. They all go through a background check, fingerprinting, and so forth, and we would apply the same standards to applicant finders. And I think it's if we get it through, it would be a very interesting animal. A similar program is available in California, and one is available in Texas. We've looked at both of their programs. They're not widely used. At least people don't seem to register widely in either of those states. There could be many reasons for that, but we think the registration requirements that we're proposing are going to be stiffer than either state has. And I think the SEC also had a proposal this past year that has stalled to register finders, and theirs was a two-tier system. It was, I think, unnecessarily complex. Ours, the way it's fashioned right now, is pretty simple. you just can't do the things that a broker does, and in general, but you are allowed to introduce investors to issuers and vice versa. You have to have a written contract between the parties. You need to disclose your compensation and any conflicts you have, and the compensation you can get is up to the parties. So it's pretty straightforward, but hopefully it's a thing that lands well in the state, and because it amplifies the potential of any issuer to have a sales force, basically, and go out there and use casual contacts to be a part of your part-time capital funding network. So those are the key points. We're also adding a couple other enforcement pieces to our anti-fraud program. Right now, believe it or not, we do not have any liability provision for control persons or aiders and abettors in our securities statute. So we're going to add that. And we're also trying to beef up our investigations program and litigation through other means outside of this bill. But so that's in a nutshell what we're trying to do in Florida, and hopefully we'll start getting some traction this coming month. We need the bill to be filed in the Senate, and but once it lands there, then we'll have bill numbers in both houses of both chambers of our legislature, and we're off to the races. Hopefully, we'll see some fruit out of this. So let's see. That's oh yes, thank you, Katie. We have so the House bill number is 779 for you Florida people, and we've also worked with the Florida Bar through the summer. They actually created a task force for this bill. We have a number of attorneys in their corporations and securities committee that have also had a similar vision for Florida, it turns out, and fortunately we all connected, and we all started working heavily on this, trying to revise the program. And so ultimately the various tiers of the bar voted in support of the work of the task force, and now we have effectively full endorsement from the Board of Governors of the Florida Bar to run this bill, which means that the Florida Bar is actually going to give us lobbying support to help try to move it. Our legislative session is 60 days long. It starts in January and ends up in March, and that is the time we have to get it done this year. So we're going to be busy right after the holidays. We have on our website a couple of things. One, we're continuing to solicit public feedback, and we've been aggregating the feedback received to date in a cumulative fashion, not attributing it to any particular submitter, but putting their comments up there so anybody can look and see what the ideas have been that have been submitted. And we're continuing to do that. We've been doing it since last spring. One of the reasons we're continuing to do it is we don't know if the bill's going to make it through this legislative session. That's one. And the other is, a number of the comments that we've got, we weren't able to fully vet in the time we had before we had to get the bill launched in its form, which was basically set in stone in September. And so the process continues. We would encourage your feedback. I know Andrew's given us feedback, and he's going to give us more today, I'm sure. And we will be taking notes and putting that into our summary. But if the bill doesn't get done this session, then we, our plan B is to continue forward, and we'll be taking this time this coming year to address the remainder of the comments that we received, and hopefully, we will be able to have even a more sharpened bill in the future if this one doesn't make it through. And if it does make it through, we'll have a floor to start from, and hopefully the amount of work that we need to do next year will be substantially limited. So click the QR code or take a shot of it and give us your thoughts. Look forward to it. So this is our contact info, and you can reach out to us in different ways. You can certainly call us. We encourage written feedback on the bill just because it's easier for us to digest and correspond about. But there you have it. So any questions? Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Commissioner. Really appreciate the high level there. I just like to, before we get into the weeds with other questions, one of the key calls to action today, folks, is none of this really matters if we don't get in touch with our representatives. We need you to like what you heard today, and wherever you're coming from, let them know what you think about what's going on here. And so I'd like to lead off with perhaps Miss Katie, Russell, yourself. Where do we find, if I'm just new to this bill process, how do I go and find out who my representative is and where to get in touch with them? Is there a shortcut to where I don't have to think a whole lot about how to do that?
Sure. Well, thank you, Dale. If you contact our office, we will be happy to put you in touch with relevant senators and representatives. That information is public as well. Anybody can go to the Florida House or the Florida Senate websites and look up their districts. But I believe you can also determine the different committees and their members. But the quickest way is to contact us, and we can, tell you, who the chair people are of the different committees that our bill is going to be before, and the various members of those committees, as well as we can certainly help you, find a local senator or representative for you to speak with as well. I want to bring up specifically the bill sponsors, which are Representative Joe Harding in the Ocala area. He's the House sponsor, and the Senate sponsor is Senator Joe Gruters, and at least he's the fellow who has said he will file it. So we're waiting on him to actually do that. But and Senator Gruters is in the Sarasota area. I'm sure both gentlemen would appreciate hearing from you.
Also on our website that Peter was highlighting, or Katie, whoever has control of the computer there, we have a link that you can just put in your home address and it'll pop up your state representative, your state senator, all in one-stop shop. There's a link on our website to that.
That's great news. Thank you.
I'm not discouraging out-of-staters from chiming in to our legislature either. I mean, the more sophisticated, the better the information. And folks that are in the industry and have experience, can share their personal experiences in a way with it that we can't. But you could, we encourage your communications, because while they're certainly going to recognize you can't vote for them, your feedback on the importance of what we're doing and trying to do for the state would certainly be beneficial. So I encourage you all to be active.
Hey, Russ, this is Mark Jones. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, Mark. Hi. How are you?
Hey, good. Hey, two real quick things. So after it gets approved, you think it's going to take you about you think it's about 8 months to a year to, kind of get through it all and actually put it into law after it goes through the legislature? What do you think the timeline is on that? After it gets approved? Because I'm confident it'll be approved, but question is, how long does it come out on the other side?
Mark, I believe, maybe Alex knows this off the top of his head, but I think we have an October 1st implementation date in the bill. I believe that's what it is. So if it gets approved, let me see.
You're right.
And I know, I'm sorry, no trick questions. While you're looking at that, I also want to let you know that USF just launched, University of South Florida just launched a huge FinTech Center of Excellence. And they teamed up with the owner of the Tampa Bay Lightning to launch it. Vinnick, as you know, you spoke at the Innovation Center there here in Tampa. And so they've launched this FinTech Center. And so let me just tell you where we're at with the current crowdfunding, Russ, in the challenges.
Before you, Mark, let me tell everybody who you are.
I'm sorry.
Mark Jones, I mentioned earlier that Florida has one licensed portal in the state. Well, that's Mark Jones on this call.
Thank you, Russ. Sorry about that. So we fully intend to utilize the local resources and so forth. But here's where we're at. In the next 30 days, we'll launch the full new site, and with all the AI, we have artificial intelligence built into the new site. It's off the hook. Some people that, if I mention their names, you'd recognize, have come forward and actually offered me solicitation to buy. But no, I want to get this thing out and get it out there. Here's one of the challenges I'm having, Russ, and this comes back to the legislation of where we're at today. So if somebody comes in on this great interstate bill you're putting together, we have to verify that they're a Florida investor, right? So I'm trying to figure out what method, right? What's going to be the accepted best method of knowing that they are in fact a Florida resident, that the issuer is not saying, well, I really want my cousin Johnny from Atlanta to get in this deal and he really wants it bad. So why doesn't he just use my address and he'll come in and he'll buy the shares, right? So it's that positive ID, right? And I'm a federal funding portal as well. And so I started looking at the side-by-side opportunity, do a federal, do a state, run them side by side. Well, FINRA said, well, I have no part of that. And and so I went to the SEC and I went to corporate fin, and I went to markets and trading at the SEC, and they said, well, that's a real head scratcher. And we're going to have to think about it. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not really asking for your approval. I'm just kind of letting you know, is there anything that prevents it from going on, right? Can they do a side-by-side? And my inclination is maybe have the issuer do a 506B or a 506C, but then there's always that issue, right, of the general solicitation. And now you're getting into that problem. But on a state offering, you don't have the conflict of general solicitation. So look, if we can go back to a validation process, and I looked at statute 790.06 as far as the voter registration validation. If we can kind of settle in on it at the state level of what's going to be the accepted validation of what the, investor is and where he's coming from, then right now today, I'm ready to go. There's nothing stopping, even under the current rule, there is. In the advertising provision, we know that you're going to have bleed into Georgia. If these guys start running, announcements on Instagram, Facebook, other social media to make awareness to their offering under the state rule, which they can, which they're allowed, but you got bleed into that state. Now, we're going to block them if they come from Georgia. We will allow them to see the offering. They're just not going to allow them to invest. And that AI is in place. But when it comes to them to actually saying I'm a Florida resident, that validation is really, we really need to establish what's that validation? What's the accepted? Is it a voter registration card? Is it a firearms card? Is it, what is that validation? And if we had that validation, I launch offerings today. We'll go today. There's nothing holding us back. So I'm just settling in on that. We got the AI there to make it all work. Other than that, that's kind of my update. And I'd like to set up a time that I can show you outside of the call, the new site and what we've done and where we're going. So thanks. That's it.
Thanks, Mark. I mean, yeah, we definitely want to drill down on these kinds of nuances and make sure there's no compliance, minefield issues that make this more complicated than need be.
Hi, Commissioner. First, thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. I want to just make a general statement, and I have just one or two quick questions for you. I moved from New York to Florida about 20 years ago. And basically, at this point now, South Florida is truly a financial hub. Basically, almost everyone I know is from the Northeast, that's on the East Coast. So we all have kind of the New York mentality and less taxes and better quality of life. So just in the last few months, and I've had a few articles about it, you've had the largest family office, or one of them in the world, Steve Cohen, move right to West Palm Beach. You had Goldman Sachs, big presence. The fourth largest hedge fund in the world, Bridgeport, just relocated to West Palm Beach. On top of that, you have all the other asset management firms. So it's already easier to do business without even these restrictions. In regards to your questions, in my opinion, the KYC, or know your client, or having a pre-existing relationship, basically the way I would look at it is I don't believe it's very expensive to accreditate someone. Basically, you can get a letter from an attorney or an accountant asking for some type of third-party verification. You don't need to actually see bank statements or anything like that. So if their lawyer or their accountant says that they're accredited based on their knowledge, that should be, in my opinion, enough. Also stating if he's a resident of Florida or another state. Again, that's my opinion. I don't. Commissioner, what I wanted to discuss is a few things. One was about current issuers that qualify. And you mentioned 3 years of revenue producing companies. What about biotechs and companies that, let's say, technology companies? For example, I know Jeff Vinnick very well, and I work with him in a few different capacities. Jeff Vinnick basically bought up a lot of the real estate in Tampa because of he was bringing all these biotech companies that we were helping fund, and so he made a kind of a hub out of Tampa, and he's doing a lot more, and I'll certainly talk about that in a second. The one portal license in Florida, I would certainly love to have a separate conversation on, but this stuff is being done with or without portals. There are, companies that have a website that just charge a transaction fee. So basically, they don't need to use a broker dealer. They're selling it on the technology. Now, the issuer, which I do want to comment on this, the testing the waters. Okay, I think Commissioner, you alluded to that the issuer, where the issuer would be able to go out and make some introductions. I think it's the other way around. It's the registered rep at the broker dealer that goes out to a few investors, say, look, I'm looking at 5 or 6 of these products, any of them make sense, and then from there go back and set up a commission or fee sharing agreement with the underlying issuer and the broker dealer. That is really who it benefits, not necessarily the issuer. It's really the broker dealer and the registered reps, which is still a huge benefit. In regards to escrow, also with the crowdfunding, I mean, lawyers and they all have escrow accounts. It's a very small fee. You don't need to be a big company. So when it comes to, I mean, that's not a big fee at all. Outside of that, I can save things for another, for later conversation.
Thank you,
All right.
Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
I see that we've got another question here. It looks like a general one. And that is, this is from one of our attendees. How can family offices best support or help this initiative specifically? I don't want to plant a seed, but perhaps, when this recording is done, is there an anticipated or copy paste like we did to promote this, for example, a press release? Do we have access to the recording?
Can I make a quick? AOC has put either a proposal that she wants to regulate family offices. Now, a lot of family offices emerged from when they regulated hedge funds, and hedge funds returned outside capital and became family offices. Now, if you're going after and trying to regulate them, you're basically offering regulation to groups that have their own means to do their own due diligence. It's certainly not helping, in my opinion, the public or the masses.
Agreed. How can family offices help? I mean, I think just following your earlier question, Dale, about getting in contact with the legislators, that is important, and to have them be heard. They are, I mean, the more involved they are, the better, I think, and it would be great if people were willing to come to Tallahassee and share their 2 cents, during committee hearings and so forth. I mean, that would be great. But once implemented, assuming that it works, we're hoping that certainly the family office community would be more inclined to look at at being potential funding sources, for our in-state businesses.
I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, that many of our clients would, in fact, most likely have a small business of some form themselves, and as a result, would probably know who their local representatives are. Am I connecting the dots? Is it safe to say that we can share this with some good news and how best to, reach out through our clients as well?
I mean, you're free to talk to anybody and everybody. That's your First Amendment right, and I encourage you to use it. So, we as an agency just can't, be the sponsor of your efforts. So.
Okay, we're getting to right at the top of the hour, and
The
obviously,
limitation, excuse me, is the limitation on the finder going to be that they cannot recommend the security? Is that right? Isn't that the golden rule?
That's one of them, yes.
Okay. We're at the top of the hour, and it's really good Q&A. Obviously, Commissioner Andrew and I both would like some follow-up with you. I particularly in the crypto space, in light of two major conferences coming up in Orlando, it's like you need to be there. But we'll follow up with you afterwards. As for anyone else, if you didn't get a question answered today, please in the chat room. If you don't know how to save that thing, there's three little dots on the side. I'm not sure how that works between participants or panelists and attendees, but if you can do that, click those three little dots, save the chat. Those links there, get back in touch. This is, if you don't know how to, if you didn't do it already in terms of going to those sites that were provided, they're in the chat. Click on, pull your phone out, get a snapshot of the QR code there, and we'd love to hear from you. With that, I do think that there was a poll. So before everybody just goes running off, is that something y'all still want to run here? I don't want to cut it off. Oh, there it is. Cool. All right. If everyone could just take a couple seconds, there's just 3 questions. Let us know what you think about what's going on here today. Thank you. All right, as we're winding down here, Peter, thank you for dropping in those subsequent contact points, and Ms. Shannon, thank you for your assistance here and putting on a good production as you always do. And Katie, you and your team, really like the short and sweet, succinct presentation, and of course, Commissioner, I like the rebel and the fierceness of, you're just not giving up. And I'd like to think that we've got a good reason for folks to move to Florida and set up shop here. So keep up the good work, sir. If there's any closing remarks from the Office of Financial Regulation, I'd like to hear from you now as we're winding down on the poll, and thank you all for attending. And I'll just personally say on behalf of me and my staff, and many of you I've seen in the audience, have the best of happy holidays, stay safe, and we'll certainly catch up with you in the new year. But I'll turn it over to the office. Closing remarks.
Well, I just really want to thank everybody for giving us a little bit of time and hearing us out. And, I hope it's something that you find worthwhile and are encouraged by. I mean, it's certainly a passion of mine, and I hope you all will share that. And I'm always available to speak more about it. If you want to contact me directly, that would be great. And I encourage any feedback you can give. The more people that are thinking about it and giving us their feedback, the better the result is going to be. So we want the best result. We got the greatest state. So let's all chip in if we can and make it even better. Thanks so much. Happy holidays.
Same here. Just wanted to thank everyone. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you everyone for taking the time. I think this is very beneficial for Florida and for all of us.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate you doing the co-host with me, and I'll be back to you shortly. We can do a little debrief if you don't mind.
Thank you, everybody.
Blessings. Take care.
Bye for now.